Shimelle Laine, and I'm here with a little twist today on the normal Sketch to Scrapbook page. Today I'm not using my own sketch, but I'm using a sketch from Allison Davis, and I'm getting ready to record an episode of the Paper Clipping Roundtable where Allison and I will both be guests on the panel, and we'll be talking about sketches and other ways to start pages. So I thought one of the best ways I could prepare would be to use one of Allison's pages to make a layout of my own. Allison, if you don't know her work, often works in double page spreads, not always, but often. And she does a lot of work with incorporating lots of photos into your page. So this sketch is, it can be found on the Simple Stories blog, and I'll put in a link, but this is Allison's sketch, a recent one, and it includes 19 photographs. That's way more than I would use on a layout. So I am going to use more photos than I normally do, and I'm going to create a double page layout, but it is my version is going to have fewer photos than Allison's sketch. Basically, what I'm going to do is eliminate all of these small photos, and I'm going to swap these two square photos for two 4x6 landscape photos. All right, and I'm going to be using supplies from my Best of Both Worlds picks for June, and I am needing to make one little change to that because I only ever include one page of each design on the shopping list. So I've had to double up one of the patterns to have a background. So I actually had 2 sheets of this charmed paper from Amy Tangerine Ready Set Go, which is the blue with the tiny little cameras that have a little heart next to the lens. And because the photos I've picked out are from my backpacking album, I'm going to use 2 sheets of craft cardstock in the background as well, because that continues throughout the entire album. Well, it's actually far more than one album. It's 4 volumes on my shelf at the moment. And so I do have quite a few photos picked out. These were actually all 4x6 photos, but to work with the sketch, I've gone to squares, which is what Allison has included, but I'm going to keep 2 of the squares as 4x6 and then these 6 as squares. Now, Allison's designed that page sketch for a divided page protector, but I'm going to do it on a 12x12. So I've made one little change, and that is that these photos are actually 3 3/4 inch squares rather than 4-inch squares, so that I'll be able to have the paper show around them rather than needing to have them all lined up like this. I'll be able to spread them out just a tiny little bit. So that's where I'm going to get started. I'm going to try to keep to my Best of Both Worlds supplies as much as I can, and we'll see how it goes when I use someone else's sketch. A little bit of a different process today. I'm going to start by assembling this side of the page with the major elements of it. There'll still be details to add later, but I think this side is the easiest to put together because it's the different pieces are 10 different objects that are all really easy to see where they're going to go. So the top and bottom rows are squares, and there are 3 of them. And what I'm thinking is that they can run slightly over the edge of the blue pattern here. So I don't want them to be in exact lines. I want them just a little bit more haphazard. So I'm going to angle them a bit like this. And then the middle section is 4 cards. So this is the setup of one of the page protectors, one of the divided page protectors. And so the cards in the middle are all that standard 3x4 card. So I want to use these 4 cards in the center, but I'm going to need to overlap them because because I'm not using that divided page protector, I need to work with the space a little bit differently. So what I'm thinking is that I can just tuck them underneath here and move them about as needed so that the wording can be seen. And that should still follow the sketch, even though I've taken the little photos out of this section, because I still have this card devoted to journaling. And instead of having the smaller photos here, I've gone for larger motifs that repeat throughout my album. So I'll go ahead and start getting those pieces in place, and then I'll go to the other side of the double page. So here's that side with the 10 different boxes all put onto one background, and then comes to the other side of the double page layout. And Allison's sketch includes measurements for different pieces on the page, and it has a large box that goes across the middle that's 6 by 12. So all I've done here is, because I've added this blue pattern paper that's not in the original sketch, is this is 6 by 11 and about 7/8. And so I just want it to be ever so slightly wider than the blue box so that the edges end in different spots. So I want this to be central on the page and run over to the side. And then there are borders top and bottom to this piece. And Allison's sketch includes a larger, dressier border at the bottom, but I'm going to keep them both really simple. I'm going to use some washi tape, and I'm afraid it's not the washi tape from the kit, although that certainly could be useful. And it would actually go with the colors that are here because the turquoise is already there. But I used a few different washi tapes throughout my backpacking album, and I want to keep to that the same supply choice. So I'm going to use this brown wood grain washi tape, and I'm not going to go all the way to the edge. I'm just going to bring it all the way to the center, but not all the way to the edge on the other side. And that will frame the yellow box. And then the sketch has two 4x4 square photos here, but I'm going to use two 4x6 landscape and eliminate the smaller row of photos across the bottom. So I just need to figure out exactly where I want to put these and how I can layer them, or maybe it would be better in the sketch they're kind of offset at an angle like this, but I'm not thinking that that's particularly a good choice with these two particular photos. I think they might actually work a little better as a stacked up block like this, but that is a big change from the sketch. So before I stick anything down, I'll have a look at the different elements that I have lined up here and see if that's the best choice. Then on the sketch there's a large camera here. I do have one camera element, a large camera element in the kit because there's this camera sticker from the Find Your Wings and Fly sticker sheet. So I've put that on pop dots so that I can move it around, and I think it's quite complementary to the one that's on the Simple Stories card. And I have Simple Stories letter stickers that I'm going to use for my title here. Now, I'm going to use the turquoise, which I know isn't always a good choice on this kind of medium sky blue, but I've used that same turquoise over here already, and I do really like how it looks with the blue, even though it's a less obvious choice than normal. And I think part of it is because the blue here coordinates with the sky, and we tend to put all different colors against the sky, and they always look pretty. So sometimes that's a nice rule from nature that there are some colors that you might not think of as a neutral, but they actually can be, just like a sky blue. So I'm going to have a look with where I can balance my title and these two photos that don't particularly want to overlap very well with my camera motif here to follow the sketch, even though I'm making that change of not including all the small square photos. After a little experimenting with where I could put the two larger photos, I think I've come up with a plan that kind of adapts it adapts the design that was already there in the sketch. So in the original sketch, the two photos are square and they're set a bit like this, and then there's this grouping of embellishments. The camera on the sketch is larger, with a larger camera here and then a heart in this space, with the title more aligned to this side. And basically what I thought I could do originally was to make these line up in this direction, but then in looking a little further, I actually like how they could work this way. So all I did was trim a little bit off the edge so that when I put them next to each other, they're not going to take up quite the full 12-inch width. So I've taken about 1/8 of an inch off each of them. And then I've added in a little bit of orange because there's orange that's appearing on the other side of the layout, but I didn't have any orange on this side. So this is just a 6x6 polka dot from a Simple Stories paper pad that has all the colors they use in their collection. So I'm thinking I can take this orange square. Most of it's going to be covered up, but it will give just a little bit of that color to this side of the layout so that the orange on the other side will have a bit of a companion piece and not look so out of place. And then because my camera sticker is smaller than the one on the sketch, I should be able to not need quite as much room here, and I can line up the photos to go across the page. So that's a pretty big change from the original sketch, and yet at the same time it's still almost within the same idea. Sometimes it just takes looking at the sketch a little while until you see how you could move things around to work with the photos that you have to hand. So instead of putting my title all the way over here, I've put it in this space here so that I can balance it with the embellishment, and I think what I'll do is bring the heart down rather than up across the page. Now I do need something to go in here, but I think I have an idea for what will work there. And then I want to start following the embellishment around the rest of the page. Now here, the only color that hasn't been represented from the other side of the layout, and there's a little bit of turquoise here, but not much else. So I've taken the back of one of those cards that has a turquoise print. It's the same print as the yellow that I used over here, but in the turquoise color. And I've stamped a few different phrases from the stamp set on there so that I can then cut those out and be able to use those as the small embellishments represented on the sketch and be able to kind of scatter that turquoise color around the layout. So I think once I get these cut out, I want to work in my journaling and make sure I have room for everything I want to say about these photos, and then I'll start adding all the embellishment. Everything is starting to come together at this point. I've gone ahead and done my writing here and in the journaling box at the far side of the layout, and then started to work on some embellishment around the title. I'm thinking that then by placing these different elements, I can include some of these in other parts of the page, especially this big top section here. So if I refer back to the sketch, the original sketch had another square photo above this picture, and I'm not going to add another photo, but I'm going to start with shape. So I want to use this turquoise stamped piece that has that shape that it's not a square, but you can see that sort of it's an orderly shape. It's not curvy or anything. It's all straight lines. And then I'm going to build around that with some of the same embellishment that I've used before on the page. And one of the things I found here was that my journaling didn't reach all the way across, so I ended up with this space here, which I ended up working in a little bit more turquoise paper that was a scrap from one of the other pages when I used that paper in the kit, and then added in a little bit more of the brown washi tape, but also a washi tape sticker. It's not really washi, it's a sticker from this Glitz sticker sheet that's in the kit, and I want to bring that same shade of yellow up to the top, but there's not another sticker that's exactly the same. There's this one in another color. Now, the word hello on scrapbooking supplies lately has been really, really popular, and I'm kind of a little past it. I'm a little worried that a lot of my pages say hello, and it's not my favorite wording at the moment just because I've overused it. So I'm going to use this piece for the color and not for the sentiment, and I'm going to cover it up. But then I'm even going to cover up that bit as well because I like the shape and the color that I've stamped this in to bring those elements together here on this part of the page. But the happy day wording isn't really the perfect sentiment for my journaling. So, not that it was a sad day, but it wasn't, I just don't think happy day is the way to describe what I've written about here. So, I know that I'm going to come in and put something over the top of this. I'm just not sure what just quite yet. So other elements that I've started to include, the sketch includes this idea of mixing cameras and hearts. So far I've used the camera sticker here and the camera motif here, then a heart sticker from the Glitz sticker sheet, and then I've been punching small hearts from the different scraps of paper. So I can bring in that yellow pattern from this jelly bean sheet that I used here. And I've also been duplicating the airplane motif because years ago I bought myself an airplane punch, which I thought I would use plenty of times, and admittedly I think I bought it because it was on sale for about $2. So perhaps if I used it on a couple layouts it's done its time, but I figured since I had the plane motif here that I could go ahead and use it a few more times. So I've included it here, and I'll include it up here as well. And I added in a stamp set that is not from the kit. It's this smaller Amy Tangerine stamp set. I'm using a little heart and the globe stamp. So I've stamped the globe directly onto the paper there, onto the background paper, and I think I'll do the same thing at the top of the page here. And just stamping that in brown ink to have a different element that can just join in all those other motifs. And I included the globe stamp at the end of my journaling too. Now I'm getting quite a lot of yellow in this particular section, so I need to come up with something I could add here that won't be the same color here. So if I refer back to this section, I could bring in a little bit more of that turquoise pattern paper and cut that to overlap the yellow, so that I just need a little strip. Maybe I could cut that into a little banner on the end, and that should just reintroduce the color at the top here. So now I'm just starting to repeat those same motifs. I've just repeated the mixing of that little piece of the washi tape with the blue turquoise paper there, and added in my yellow heart and plain motifs. Got the stamped globe. I knew I wanted to come back to this wording, so I found one phrase that would work well, but it's a little bit narrower than the wording. This is from the Simple Stories alphabet sheet that has the little phrases on it. So I've cut a little scrap of the orange pattern paper to cover up the extra bit of wording so that it will just look like these pieces are layered on there, and not so obvious that I'm trying to cover up other lettering. So I can add the orange and then the phrase below that. So now I've got the colors and the patterns. I want to repeat that little brown heart that I stamped at the bottom. So I'll add that either side. And I think one of the things that would work well here is if I just do a tiny little bit more handwriting here, because then it will have that in common with the bottom of the page as well. So just grab my pen and add in a little bit more here, and I think that will do this cluster, and that little bit will be finished. Then I can just look at some finishing touches to make this side work best with the other side of the layout. Okay, so very nearly finished now. I've added that little bit of writing, and I added a couple little hearts toward this side just to extend that. I did kind of want to bring in something that was another layer that was similar to this, so I tried using the memory stamp, and I didn't like the turquoise on the blue. I tried backing it with orange, and I just decided this was too much, so I'm going to leave it with just the hearts. Then my last little step was that I wanted to bring something about the way that I've embellished this page over to this side. There's already a lot going on here, but it's all flat to the page. So I'd rather have something that kind of brings together that idea of kind of the little scattered dimensional pieces over to this side. And I had to look at it for a while thinking, how could I mix the two? Because these are groupings with a lot of things in them, but they're all very small things. And this side has really bold icon type embellishment. So I decided I would keep it really simple and went back to the sketch and noticed how many hearts that she'd placed all over the different elements of the sketch, and thought I will just do that. A lot of the hearts on her sketch have a little tab or another little detail underneath, and I figured that since I've added all those little layers over here, I'll just keep this side simpler, but I will go ahead and include the hearts. So what I wanted to do was bring the coloring a little bit more together on this side of the page so that each box has more than just the color that's already there. So for example, this one only has yellow and brown. It would be good to bring in some turquoise. So I've got my turquoise punched heart. This one doesn't have any orange, so I have an orange punch card that I can bring in here. This one doesn't have any yellow, so I can add in yellow there. And this one doesn't have yellow or turquoise, and I figured the turquoise was the better option here. So I'm just going to stick all of those with pop dots, so that hopefully that will do just enough to bring the two pages together. They obviously have the same background paper, so it's pretty obvious that they are meant to coordinate. But this way there's just a little bit of continuity in the design without bringing in so many little details from the other side of the page that it doesn't match. And I now also have the 3 globes scattered across the full 12 by 24 canvas, so I'm quite happy with that. So thank you so much for checking in today and having a look at this little different adventure for Sketch to Scrapbook Page. You can find Allison's sketch on the Simple Stories blog, and I'll link that to you, for you. And I hope you'll also check out the episode of the Paper Clipping Roundtable podcast, where Allison and I, along with Noelle Hyman, discuss our different processes for creating and using sketches in our pages. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope to see you soon.